Welcome everybody to today's seminar on operational excellence. We'll get started by introducing today's speakers. My name is Darren Steele. I've been working in operations intelligence for just over 20 years now, and I'm delighted today to introduce Dr. Mark Hodgkinson, who is a real thought leader in the world of operational excellence in oil and gas. This is the agenda for today's seminar. I'll hand over to Dr. Mark. So welcome, Dr. Mark.
Yes, thank you very much, Darren. So we're going to try and talk about operational excellence today. This first slide is just talking about why and what is operational excellence, and I always think OE is about having a robust management system, but then also operational discipline, which why it's so applicable to many different organizations, obviously particularly to high-risk organizations. So it's very important that people do the right thing the right way at the right time every time. This all puts together to help you get your business execution done properly. The focus of your OE will depend therefore on your strategy, and that means we have different types of approaches and different tools we would use in the operational excellence approach. So just picking two or three out there. So clearly a process approach, making sure that procedures are very clear in a high risk, whereas you might want to have multiple continuous improvement tools and programs if you're doing an effectiveness, and whereas you might want to apply Lean Six Sigma if you're looking at efficiency. So I think that shows that operational excellence is quite versatile. So let's talk about some outcomes. So as I said, the ones that I was working in is high risk and organizations. And so we were focusing on procedures and a robust management system, and also making sure that everyone does the right thing the right way all the time. And we're able to get a lot of success out of that. So this is built on these organizations I work for already had the ISOs and the OSISs and the various other management systems, but those management systems just weren't getting the results required. When we overlaid operational excellence above all those management systems and tied them together with leadership and behaviors, we were able to achieve very good data on our personal safety, process safety, and reliability. And so that was a great gain for us. Keeping it sustains. Another challenge. You've got to keep coming up with ways to keep people focused, but certainly it worked for us. It's one of the reasons I feel obligated to talk to you today, is that this is an experiment that worked very well, and we've repeated it 2 or 3 times in different organizations and different locations now. So I think I can say with surety that this process works. Next slide. And if we look at some underlying leading aspects, so instead of those lagging data like I was just showing you, looking at compliance, so MOCs are management of change, and often people will raise an MOC and the risk assessment will be done, but there'll be overhanging actions done, and sometimes they can be over. In the organizations that we're in, when we started, this was quite a large number in the 300s. When we started to apply operational excellence, we got it down to the 130s to the 100 marks, and when we applied technology assistant governance on top of that, we got it down to 0 or near 0. We'll talk about a bit of technology later that helped us do that, but you can see that we maintained our performance there. Next slide. Likewise with safety work orders. So safety work order in the computerized maintenance management system would be something like the operators do a safety check and find a safety shower's not working, or a hydrant's leaking, or some other safety device like that. So in the scheme of things for prioritizing work orders, they get a slightly different flag on them, and it enables us to pull that data out and analyze it. I mean, clearly for morale of operators as well, there might be things that are more important to fix on the day, but a safety shower that's not working perfectly will certainly affect the morale of the operator. So I think that's very important. And you can see here again, when we started to apply operational excellence, and particularly technology assistance governance around that, we drove that down, and that's been zero since 2014, and that's been maintained. Next slide. So implementation, how did we do it? I guess that's why you're listening. So it's really just a plan, do, check, act cycle. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. I guess the difference is this vision and objectives part. So vision, objectives, assessment. One thing that certainly we can help with is we've got these fantastic assessment templates for various processes that we've built up over the years, and even augmented that with the American Quality Council templates. And that allows us to assess and benchmark, and then planning, which basically is prioritizing. Implementation, we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And then there's a review step. Some of it's half yearly, some of it's yearly, and some of it's every 3 years. And I think that fits between the management system process, which is this cycle, and we have some specific OE expectations depending on the site. And we'll go into those after. Next slide. So this is the way that the teams I've worked with and led over the years have done this. The reason we're showing it is, again, to repeat that we've applied this 3 or 4 times now at different refineries and sites in this exact same way, and it's worked. So one was key sponsorship and vision. So that's very important. We have a change management model that we work with. It's a little bit cross between ProSci and Chip for Change, which is a Chevron model. Then we interpret that vision for the workforce. I mean, management speak often doesn't land well with the whole workforce, and so something like the Toyota Way or some 3 or 4 easy to remember mantras or doctrines on the way we work around here. So just interpret that for the workforce, and that's surprisingly difficult to do that part. So I think every time we've done the program, people have thought that would just be an easy rollout, but it isn't. You've when you're sick and tired of talking about OE, people are just starting to listen. So you really have to communicate many different ways to get that in. Then form your team, then map all the processes to these templates that we have. So what you're trying to achieve, seeing which processes are missing, which processes might be required to be imported, or then assign owners and subject matter experts using a RACI diagram for each of those. And then do the gap assessments. And so, as I said, we have these matrices of just deciding whether a process is less than satisfactory, satisfactory, or good. That's been built up over 20 or so years, and they're quite mature. Then there's an alignment step, and that's around getting people aligned to the reason for change, and ongoing fluency in coaching. That's always important. Like in any science, you can't proceed until people are talking the same language. In some cultures, we've steered away from operational discipline, and instead, because it doesn't land well, we've used always do the right thing the right way, or something similar. And then the gap closure starts, and that's about designing the processes so they're more error tolerant, and building in human factors, and making sure that they're effective. And finally, and this is where the IT part really comes in, is doing governance, which can be particularly tedious unless you have technology-assisted governance. And I think that's a point of difference that Darren will probably talk about a little bit later. Next slide. So I think I'll give Darren, I'll go back to you, I think.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I think now's a good time to talk about some of the systems that are involved in, and the technology that can be used to assist having an effective OE management system. XHQ is used to connect to those different systems of record, whether it's a PI historian, whether it's a LIMS system, whether it's a scheduling, production accounting system, whether it's an MOC or a safety system. XHQ will connect to all of those systems and just to bring in the decision critical information that is required to support those to support those KPIs. These end users need to define their own limit sets, their own targets. Each KPI or KOP that they're responsible for will have a different accrual rate, to have a different reporting period. So there's some management needed around these metrics. And that's where IT Vision, we saw that gap in the landscape, and we created Vizion OE as an application. So a simple end user application to help them manage those targets and limits, and to help them define those KPIs. And the workforce can just have a single place they can go to see, these are my OE related metrics. These are the limits and the targets around those. These are the deviations. And so, they don't have to worry about data wrangling. They don't have to worry about data preparation. They can just focus on their core competence and focus on addressing those OE opportunities. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you, Dr. Mark.